In Dalton, Illinois, political chaos isn't new, but the recent events surrounding Mayor Tiffany Henyard have thrown the town into complete turmoil. Known for her confrontational leadership style and endless battles with village trustees, Henyard has long been a lightning rod for controversy. But what went down at the most recent village board meeting took everything to a whole new level, turning local politics into something that felt more like an episode of reality TV than a government proceeding. The meeting, originally set to happen at Village Hall, had to be moved to the Park District building to accommodate a massive crowd of residents. People weren't just curious. They were eager to witness the next showdown between Henyard and the trustees. For months, tensions had been boiling over disagreements about appointments, policy decisions, and how the village should be run. But no one expected things to spiral out of control the way they did. From the moment the meeting started, Henyard came out swinging. She completely threw aside the usual procedures and launched into a dramatic performance. Less about governing and more about asserting dominance. It was obvious she wasn't there to get work done. She wanted to make a statement. The whole thing quickly turned into a circus. The live broadcast was abruptly cut, leaving the crowd inside and everyone watching at home stunned. Instead of focusing on urgent issues affecting Dalton, Henyard seemed more interested in the attention. She used the meeting as a stage to show off her power, completely ignoring the real needs of the town. The more she acted out, the more the public questioned whether she was fit to lead. Her behavior painted a picture of a mayor addicted to drama, not progress. And while some residents genuinely came to talk about the town's problems, others showed up just to see what kind of chaos Henyard would stir up next. Her craving for the spotlight overshadowed any serious discussion. The meeting, which was supposed to be about solving community issues, got hijacked by her erratic behavior. As things devolved into complete disorder, it became clear Henyard was not interested in leadership. She was interested in theatrics. This wasn't just another tense meeting. It was a breaking point. At the center of it all were allegations of questionable spending that had already enraged many residents. Instead of addressing those concerns, the meeting became a full-blown political sideshow. Henyard refused to follow protocol, wouldn't cooperate with trustees, and avoided every real issue that needed attention. Dalton's political scene wasn't just dysfunctional, it was in absolute crisis. People started openly asking whether Henyard was still fit to be mayor. Her erratic outbursts, disregard for rules, and total refusal to communicate only made things worse. Her leadership style wasn't just controversial anymore. It was destructive. The meetings had become pure chaos. Cooperation was dead. And the trust between Henyard, the trustees, and the community was crumbling. Then came the power play. In a stunning move, Henyard held her own rogue meeting at Village Hall, ditching the official one scheduled at the Park District. It was a blatant attempt to prove she was still in charge, but it blew up in her face. Only 2 trustees showed up, far short of the quorum needed to make anything official. Humiliated, Henyard stormed out and drove straight to the Park District building where the real meeting was still underway. What happened next was wild. She barged in unannounced, hijacking the meeting and trying to steal the spotlight again. Her sudden arrival set off an immediate wave of tension. She refused to acknowledge the board's authority and made a now infamous declaration: "I am the mayor of the village of Dalton." The crowd wasn't having it. Many turned their backs, in disgust, and the room grew ice cold. This was no longer just politics. It was a spectacle. Rather than reasserting her authority, Henyard's actions pushed her even further out of favor. The divide between her and everyone else, the trustees, the public, had never been wider. Then came the legal hammer. A temporary restraining order was issued, blocking Henyard from making appointments without board approval. It was a major blow. The legal system had stepped in, effectively isolating her from her own government. Meanwhile, more residents started questioning if the town could ever recover from the mess her leadership had created. Each dramatic outburst made things worse. With every move, Henyard alienated more people. The political landscape of Dalton was no longer about governance. It was about chaos. Her refusal to compromise, to work with others, or even listen to the people she was elected to serve, made one thing clear. She was spiraling. The restraining order was just the start. Henyard then tried to push through a new police chief appointment, but the crowd drowned her out. She tried to take back control by declaring the meeting illegal, but no one listened. Witnesses said it was complete madness. She was booed out of the room, forced to leave as the people she was supposed to serve turned against her. Then it got even more intense. She stormed out of the building, visibly furious. Police, already stationed nearby, jumped in to calm things down. Rumors started flying. Some said she even got physical with an official. Whether or not that's true, the meeting was over. The situation had spiraled out of control. And then, the unthinkable. Henyard was arrested. Right there. It was the final twist in a political drama that had gone completely off the rails. Her arrest wasn't just shocking. It was symbolic. It confirmed what many already believed. Her leadership had become a liability. The same woman who once promised a new future for Dalton had now dragged the town into chaos, distrust, and dysfunction. Her fall was fast and public. The very traits that once made her stand out, her boldness, her defiance, had now consumed her. Her career collapsed under the weight of her own behavior. As she was led out in handcuffs, the community watched in disbelief. A mayor who once seemed unstoppable was now disgraced. Her ambition had brought her power, but it had also brought her downfall. And the town she left behind? Still trying to pick up the pieces. In the wake of Tiffany Henyard's arrest, the political landscape of Dalton had shifted dramatically, and the damage her leadership had caused seemed impossible to undo. The town, once hopeful for progress under her guidance, was now left to confront the fallout of a fractured government. The future of Dalton appeared uncertain, with the public spectacle of the mayor's downfall leaving many residents wondering whether the town could ever recover from the deep wounds inflicted by her leadership. The chaos surrounding her reign was no longer just a local issue. It had played out on a much larger stage, drawing attention from outside the community. Henyard's inability to govern effectively had led to her ultimate downfall, and the town was left grappling with whether it could ever move beyond the dysfunction she created. As the community struggled to come to terms with the events of that day, it seemed the political turmoil was far from over. Henyard's arrest marked a significant turning point in Dalton's history, but the aftermath of her leadership was far from resolved. The town would have to rebuild, but the question remained: could they restore the trust and cooperation that had been lost under Henyard's reign? What had once been a promising leadership had now become a distant memory, overshadowed by the spectacle of her arrest and the dysfunction that defined her time in office. The arrest, along with the chaos that preceded it, cemented Henyard's place in Dalton's political history as a deeply divisive and controversial figure. The community's ability to move forward would depend on whether they could heal the divisions Henyard had created and restore a sense of unity and purpose to their government. The political crisis in Dalton reached a boiling point when Mayor Tiffany Henyard's increasingly erratic behavior, financial mismanagement, and defiance of established governance procedures led to a dramatic downfall that stunned the community. This moment wasn't isolated. It was the culmination of months, if not years, of growing tension, dysfunction, and defiance under Henyard's leadership. From the very beginning, her tenure was marked by controversy, pushing boundaries and disregarding the basic principles of effective governance. The consequences of her actions would reverberate for years, leaving the future of Dalton uncertain. Henyard's leadership had always been characterized by a confrontational approach, a disregard for established rules, and an inclination to push her own agenda over collaboration. From her first days in office, she stirred controversy by publicly challenging the authority of the village trustees and frequently making decisions without consulting them. While Dalton residents had hoped for a strong leader to guide the town into a new era, they got a mayor who prioritized her own interests and made a spectacle of governance. The tension between Henyard and the village trustees quickly grew as She undermined their authority and pushed forward with decisions increasingly seen as reckless. One of Henyard's most significant missteps was her consistent defiance of local government procedures, particularly concerning key appointments. Appointments like naming a new police chief or village attorney were traditionally made in collaboration with the Board of Trustees, but Henyard refused to follow these norms, sparking outrage. She bypassed established procedures and began making decisions unilaterally, which alienated not only her political opponents, but also her supporters. It became evident that Henyard was more interested in asserting control over Dalton's future than in working cooperatively with the elected representatives of the town. Her actions were not without consequence. As Henyard pushed forward with controversial appointments and policies, tensions within the village government reached unprecedented levels. The situation worsened when it became clear that she was unwilling to collaborate, creating a toxic environment of division and dysfunction. Residents, who had once hoped for a leader who could unify the town, were left disillusioned by Henyard's erratic behavior and refusal to engage in constructive dialogue. Instead of resolving the town's challenges, Henyard seemed to thrive on the chaos her leadership generated, pushing Dalton further into political turmoil. By the time of the fateful village board meeting, Henyard's political capital had completely eroded. What should have been a routine meeting to discuss important local issues quickly turned into a public spectacle. Henyard attempted to push through critical appointments, including naming a new police chief, despite widespread resistance. The public's anger was palpable, and the room quickly filled with frustration and hostility toward the mayor. The audience refused to listen to her, rejecting her authority, which only isolated Henyard further. The meeting, which had begun with the usual political tensions, quickly escalated into full-blown chaos. Henyard's failure to regain control of the proceedings highlighted the unraveling of her leadership in a dramatic turn of events. Henyard was escorted away in handcuffs, marking the definitive end of her political reign. The arrest was a dramatic turning point, signifying the failure of Henyard's leadership, the collapse of her political power, and the deepening divisions within the town. Her defiance of the legal framework, combined with her inability to govern effectively, had left Dalton in a state of complete disarray. It was clear Henyard's political career had reached its breaking point. The question for Dalton now was whether the town could recover from the chaos she had caused, and whether new leadership would emerge to restore order and rebuild trust. Henyard's tenure had been a whirlwind of scandal and controversy. The mayor's defiance of governance procedures, her attempt to bypass the village board, and her insistence on making key appointments unilaterally created an environment of dysfunction that undermined the entire political system. As tensions mounted, rumors of financial mismanagement began to surface. Allegations of Henyard's misuse of taxpayer funds, particularly related to extravagant and questionable spending on travel, further tainted her reputation. These rumors began to tarnish the image of a leader who had once presented herself as a champion of change. Despite the mounting allegations, Henyard remained defiant, dismissing accusations of financial misconduct as part of a coordinated smear campaign aimed at undermining her authority. However, as leaked documents and reports began to surface, the claims became harder to dismiss. Thousands of dollars of taxpayer money were allegedly spent on lavish travel and accommodations with no clear justification. These expenses were particularly concerning, given Dalton's financial struggles. The growing perception that Henyard had prioritized her personal interests over the welfare of the town created a deep sense of betrayal among residents. The fact that these expenditures were allegedly funded by taxpayer dollars only intensified the outrage. As the allegations continued to swirl, legal pressures mounted. Federal and state agencies, including the FBI, began investigating Henyard's financial dealings, signaling that Dalton's political crisis had escalated into a full-blown scandal. Henyard's refusal to address the mounting concerns, coupled with her combative rhetoric and continued defiance of authority, only deepened the divide within the town. What had once been a community with a shared vision of progress was now fractured along political lines, with Henyard's behavior turning supporters into skeptics and opponents into vocal critics. Henyard's response to the growing legal and Political pressure was to cast herself as a victim of a corrupt system. On social media, she framed herself as a hero standing up against an establishment conspiring to bring her down. While this rhetoric resonated with a small base of vocal supporters, it only alienated others who might have been willing to rally behind her. Her siege mentality portrayed her as an outsider battling a corrupt political system, further distancing her from the broader community. Her defiant stance only pushed Dalton deeper into turmoil, making it increasingly unlikely that any resolution could be reached under her leadership. The situation took another dramatic turn when Henyard, unable to convene a legally authorized meeting due to a lack of quorum, stormed into a village trustee meeting at the Park District building. She barged into the room uninvited, disregarded the procedures, and attempted to take control of the proceedings. Her entrance was met with loud boos, shouts, and even thrown objects, signaling the depth of the community's frustration. Henyard's insistence on making key decisions, including appointing a new police chief without following proper legal procedures, only aggravated the already tense atmosphere. To the trustees, who had long been at odds with her, Henyard's antics were now openly exasperating. The crowd's reaction was a clear indication that Henyard's leadership had become untenable. What should have been a routine meeting to address critical town issues quickly devolved into an uncontrollable spectacle. Henyard's inability to work with others was on full display, and the community was left grappling with the consequences of her divisive behavior. The town's political system was in tatters, and Dalton was now facing a leadership vacuum. The culmination of Henyard's defiance came when she was arrested at the meeting. The arrest marked the end of her political career and further solidified the perception that she was incapable of governing effectively. It was a humiliating moment. As Henyard was escorted out of the meeting in handcuffs, the community watched in disbelief. The once powerful mayor, who had made a career of defiance, was now a figure of ridicule and failure. In the wake of Henyard's arrest, Dalton was left to pick up the pieces of its fractured governance. The town was deeply divided, and residents were left wondering how, or even if, they could recover from the chaos Henyard had caused. Her reign of defiance had left deep scars, and the political system she disrupted was in urgent need of repair. The future of Dalton seemed uncertain, as the town's leaders scrambled to find a way forward. Despite Henyard's insistence that she was fighting for the people, her actions had only pushed Dalton further into chaos. The increasing evidence of her financial mismanagement, the public spectacle of her arrest, and the growing resentment from residents and trustees alike made it difficult to see how she could regain any semblance of authority. With each new revelation, her credibility continued to erode, and mounting legal pressure seemed poised to bring her downfall. As Henyard's political career spiraled toward its inevitable end, Dalton's future remained uncertain. The town now faced the challenge of rebuilding its governance, repairing the deep divisions Henyard had exacerbated, and restoring trust in local leadership. Whether Dalton could recover from the damage caused by Henyard's divisive leadership was still an open question. But one thing was certain. The political saga of Tiffany Henyard had left an indelible mark on the town, and the fallout from her actions would be felt for years to come.